then afternoon if you are, like I said, in time zones where it's afternoon, like where we are at the moment. At evening for David, who will be connecting from UAE, and several other persons on the call. Welcome to the Enipro Global HR Analytics Summit. We thank everyone for joining, for those who have joined at the moment, and those who are yet to join. I want to thank you all for joining today's session. It's going to be explosive. I can tell you that for a fact. There are already agendas already set for today's session. I think we have some other persons who would want to join this call. So what I would do is I would give 60 seconds to have every other person who will join, and after which we will get into the business of the day. So we'll be back by, I don't know what time it is where you are, but in the next 60 seconds, we would get on with today's session. Thank you. All right, everyone, I'm back. I hope you can see me. And I also hope you can hear me. Sorry? Can I get a feedback from anyone to be sure that you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Jess.
Okay, sorry, my network booted me out of the meeting. Yeah. But I'm back. Sorry, can you all hear me, or can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yes, we can.
Can hear you and see you.
Hi, Jesse, we can hear
All
you.
right, thank you so much. I needed that feedback. My name is Jesse, and I would be, okay, thank you so much. I would be starting with an introduction while we are here, just to lay a foundation, and then we get into the conversation for today. I'm sure there are other people trying to join in, but like we said, 3 p.m. West African time, and depending on where you're connecting from, we would they will meet us wherever we are. Like I said again, thanks to everyone who joined this meeting. And like I said, also it's going to be an explosive meeting. So my name is Jesse, and I lead training at Enipro Academy, and a foremost learning and development organization, really doing amazing work here and helping a lot of talents, attain their potentials as needed, or as their set objectives. And we've been doing this for a while. We have tremendous testimonials. I'm sure we'll get to that session where we'll be reading out what we've done, and from a live data standpoint, because we are also a data academy, and everything that drives our conversation is data driven. Today, we'll be having, we're currently having the Global HR Analytics Summit, and I will just, shed some light around this summit. And the essence of this is to be able to help HR professionals, perhaps also newbies or those who are intending to come into the profession, HR profession, understand how HR connects to data from different facets. There are different facets of HR. I'm sure that's why all our esteemed speakers on this call will be breaking things down when we get to that area. Again, so is to be able to bring to the fore the essence of HR analytics in these current times, especially going through the COVID period, understanding how different businesses and the entire world as it is have changed, and how aside just the numbers of the spreadsheets, how you can connect those numbers with your people, and then optimize your business outcome, performance, employee engagement, etc., etc. And also how you can also harness the power of tools like computational tools like SQL and the likes, and seeing how you can use those tools to bring in awesome performance in your organization. Again, to also emphasize that every organization, to a very large extent, needs to begin to see HR from just transactional to being more strategic and functional. And that's the essence of why we have this summit. This is the second edition. The last edition we had, that was last year. We had speakers from across different continents as well. We had was streamed across different platforms, and we were able to reach at least 300 people. And so today it just got started. The numbers are building. It might take some time to allow people to join in, but I'm also watching the time as well as they join in. Okay, someone have, okay. So if you're just joining us, this is the Enipro Global HR Analytics Summit. And what I've just done in the last few minutes is to introduce the summit itself and why we hold this summit. And again, today's program is packed. It's packed with a lot of high-profile professionals from different continents. When we did the cumulative years of experience, it amounted to about 100 years of experience. So you can imagine what to expect. Again, to state that for this session today, we will be having the Q&A towards the end of the program. It's only just one of the speakers who is currently connecting from Australia. I think she's at the red eye period of the day, I think 1 or 2 a.m. So when she's done with her presentation, the next you can drop your questions at the Q&A section, and our team will pick it up and read it out, and she will take your question. But for every other speaker, once they are done with their session, you can drop your questions on the Q&A chat box. They would we'll have our team who pick and collate your different questions, and towards the end of the program, we'll have all your answers. You have answers to all your questions, rather. So you need to stay glued, and I'm sure you should have your writing materials to be able to take in a whole lot from today's session. For those who are just joining us, my name is Jesse. We're going to be going into the next item on the agenda, which would be the introduction of the first speaker. And to do that, I have my colleague who is currently on the call, who will take the profile of Simo. We would give 60 seconds, then the next voice you will hear after that is my colleague's voice. So Hamina, can you confirm if you can hear me? They're waiting for you. Can you hear me?
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to Enipro Summit, Enipro HR Summit. And I'll be doing the profile reading.
Right, so can you hear me? Confirm you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, all right, great. So we'll be having you take the profile of Simo, and the next voice you'll be hearing is Amina's voice. Amina, over to you. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll be taking the profile of Simo Sehle. Simo Sehle is an highly astute Simo Sehle is a highly astute and experienced transformation leader and human resources consultant with over 10 years experience providing bespoke solutions to organizations in the logistics, financial services, retail, petrochemical, energy, and consulting sectors. Currently, the country leader responsible for BBBEE, localization, and government relations for an international oil and gas energy company, Baker Hughes. He was previously the group transformation manager at Motus Group, where he was responsible for designing transformation strategies, policies, and practices. Prior to this, he was the group skills development manager at MMI Holdings. Simo has postgraduate diploma in business administration and is currently completing his master's in business administration. Mr. Simo, you are highly welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Ladies and gentlemen, please let's give it up for Simo. Simo, just to confirm that you can hear me, and yeah.
Yes, Jess, I can hear you, and thank you.
Thank you so much. So over to you. You have the floor. You can also share your screen as well.
Will definitely do. If you can just give me 2 seconds.
All right.
God. Why is this? Let's just share screen. Desktop 1. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. I can't see it.
Okay, give me 2 seconds. Can you see my screen now? Okay. Let's just do this. Jess, is it fine if I just email you because it seems to be giving me a problem? If I just send you the presentation, please.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. You can do that. You can do that, and you can just continue. So while on it, I would pop your presentation up.
Okay, cool. Some odd reason it's
Let me know when you
okay.
send it
Well,
or when you've sent it. Okay, while we wait for Simo, I'll just say a bit about what we do at Enipro, just in addition to what I said earlier on, while we're trying to have Simo sort his presentation so that it can be effective to best share it. So we are a foremost learning and development organization focused on celebrating talent for Industry 4.0, as well as bridging the learning gap between the industry and the classroom. We have a goal to 2020 to skill 10 million talents, and at the moment we are doing about it's over 6,000 now, yes, and we've delivered close to 7,400 course hours. And our focus groups are professionals, students, schools and organizations. For professionals, all class of professionals have had experience at academy, trader class, and kind of professionals. And we have received tremendous feedback. And one of the amazing feedback that I say that sweeps us off our feet is one we had 2 months ago. We had one of our students who landed with us, and she went for a job interview. She was giving us this testimonials afterwards, and she got in. It was a data analytics role here, and she got into the conversation, normal personality interview. And when it got to the technical aspect, and she was asked, "So where do you learn data analytics and all?" And the recruiter found out that she learned it from Enipro Data Academy. One, and the next thing she shared that at some point, give opportunities to come share and take some, just inspire, current students. And she said that was how the interview history. So in addition to this kind of testimonials, we have a whole lot coming in. If I share another one while we're waiting for Steve, I'm just trying to use that to so that meeting is not quiet. We have someone who works with, I think, the faith-based organization. And so they're trying to do, that was in our HR analytics class, they're trying to build a very robust competency based assessment, across. And we're talking of an organization, a faith-based organization that has a whole lot of branches across the nation and even outside of Nigeria as well. And lo and behold, she became a superstar, knowing fully well that she could do this. And she traced it back to learning at the academy. And the interesting thing about this particular testimonial is she just got done a few weeks, from the academy, and this kind of a few weeks. So she was defending her project. Yeah, I remember. So during her project defense, because in academy, you, aside the normal coursework, you have to do all your tests, assessments. You then defend your project at a session called the boardroom. So during that session where we are saying, share your experience and all that, she started sharing experience with a whole lot of excitement. And now she's a superstar in our organization. So these are the things that we do. And these are the kind of learning and the quality of learning that we offer to everyone who comes to learn with us. I can go on and on and on and on, and you'll be mind blown at the kind of testimonials that you turn out from our academy. Was it last month? No, earlier last month, we had a call from a recruiting organization who came, to say, they want to partner with Enipro Academy. And the partnership is around. So everyone who comes, especially those who are between the base of the pyramid, that's students, in quotes, who are in universities or maybe job seekers who come to learn data, AI, UI, UX at the academy. you know, at the point when they get into the academy, they have a profile. They are being profiled, and as they learn during their learning journey, there's a system that updates what they've learned, and at the end of the learning program, they get called for an interview, and the rest they say is history. So that's the process flow. So for everyone who comes to learn with us now, they sign the MOU sometimes this month, and now we're beginning to have people who learn with us, get updated on that platform. So these are the things that we do at the academy here, and these are the kind of testimonials that we get. I will not be able to share a whole lot because we need to get it. Simo, can you confirm if you are fine now?
I've sent it through to you, Jess, because my screen can't seem to share. I think we've got restrictions and firewalls from our side.
Oh, okay. Okay, just let me check my email. I'm not seeing it. Yeah, it's not dropped yet.
Can you check in your junk?
Oh, you can just speak through the presentation. Okay. Let me do that.
Do you have it now?
Yes? Yeah. I'll share it. I just said. Oh, okay. So it's coming up.
Okay, cool. Not a problem.
Yeah, can you see my screen now? Just please confirm. Can you see my screen? I see. Can you see my screen? Sorry?
I think it's dark. It's just gone dark.
Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
All right. All right. So, Simo, you have the floor. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I'll switch on my video, or should I keep it off, Jess? Do you
Sorry?
want me to keep my video off if it's fine, or do you want me to switch it on?
That I didn't get that. Someone.
Okay, it's fine.
What do you want me to do? I don't seem to get it.
Okay.
Simo, I think we like to
All right.
see your face. You can keep your
Okay.
video on.
No problem. I'll definitely keep it on. So good afternoon, everyone, and my apologies for the slow and bumpy start. I think we've got a bit of some restrictions on our network as it relates to screen sharing and recordings and all that kind of stuff. But just to jump through it, next slide, please, Jess. Next slide, please, Jess. Next slide, please, Jess.
Sorry, I was logged out. I'm back. I would share it now. All right.
Okay, next slide, please, Jess.
Is this okay?
Yes, that's fine. So I work for a company called Baker Hughes, which is
Yeah, is this okay?
that should be fine, Jess.
All right.
Yeah, so I work for a for an oil and gas company, or what was previously oil and gas, and now is really focused on energy transition, which is Baker Hughes. For a lot of you, you would have known G Oil and Gas or General Electric, the gas division. But what had since transpired over the past couple of years is that GE and Baker Hughes had entered into a joint venture, and we've subsequently renamed and rebranded to be Baker Hughes. And previously, what we would have focused on was both the upstream side of the business, but now we've got both the upstream as well as the downstream. And what we've now started to include is the energy transition. The reason why I'm giving you this background is to also give you some context into some of the changes that are happening within the business. So we've committed to a net zero emissions as well as carbon reductions. We're one of the first companies in the world to actually do that. And we've done that because of the huge role that Baker Hughes plays within the economies across the globe, as well as oil and gas as a whole. And our CEO, and unfortunately that is not depicted on there, but Lorenzo, he's made a bold statement to affirm our commitment that we are going to be making energy cleaner, safer, and more efficient for people as well as our planet. And we're doing that through 4 key values that we drive within the company, which is to grow, collaborate, lead, as well as care. And we've also become a signatory to the UN Global Compact on net reduction as a whole. Within Sub-Saharan Africa, we have what we call 4 product companies that we operate in, which is the oilfield services, which is your generic, what you guys would know as the upstream side of the business. We have OFE, which is the oil field equipment side, which would be more your downstream side of the business. And then we have 2 interesting companies or product companies that we have, which is the digital solutions as well as the turbo machinery process and systems, which is what we call TPS. Within the Sub-Saharan African region, we operate in about 43 countries. However, we've got one approach in terms of HR as well as empowerment across the region. Jess, I think the slide has gone off, but I'll start anyway. In terms of my presentation today, really, I want us to look at workforce analytics as an investment in HR. And when we talk about investments in HR, we talk about obviously the return thus far. So really, we're looking at creating a methodology that can give HR a competitive advantage and be able to quantify what it is that we've invested from a financial point of view, as well as a human capital point of view. And really what I'm saying in the presentation is that, you know, often the challenge is not access to data, but really we need to be able to get the data, get the information, and be able to provide solutions based on that data. So my presentation then will focus on 3 core themes, which will be identifying, how do we identify the business issues to which workforce analytics may have an impact? I'm also going to talk about structuring the analysis process in terms of identifying those issues within workforce analysis and workforce data analytics. And then obviously using those results that come out of it to drive a compelling story to the business and to build a compelling business case to be able to drive decision-making within the business. So a lot of the times, obviously, we know that we get the data is paraded in front of us, but no firm or concrete decisions are made therefrom. So in terms of where we start, really what I say is that we really, as an HR community, need to start with the end in mind. And what do we mean with starting with the end in mind? HR, as we know it, really has changed dramatically over the past couple of years. And a lot of us HR professionals will find ourselves being redundant or without jobs because of automation, as well as the data analytics that is required to be driven within organizations. So really my presentation, as I said, is how do we as a community structure our mindset and structure our skills and our capability to be able to meet the business where it's at, which is really to be able to provide the required analytics and to give the solutions in order not to become redundant. Next slide, please, Jess. And the next slide, please, Jess. And I really talk about, a framework for accessing actionability. And what do I mean by actionability? I'm saying that workforce analytics and the data that we need to interpret to the business, we need to understand that it is going to be an art as well as a science. And where you have science and an art, it means that we've got to practice it regularly, come to terms with it and come to grips with it. And it comes to us understanding that what is our requirement and what is our key purpose as a business. And I really say that, the art is where we talk about identifying the issue. And for me, the sciences, and as well as our organization, the science comes to how do we analyze then the data. And then again, where we talk about the art, we talk about delivering the findings in a manner that the business can understand, that they can be accustomed to, and that they can be able to make the right form of business-driven decisions where this information and data are coming from. And I know a lot of us are not mathematicians. Next slide, please, Jess. And we talk about, really, is this real? We sometimes hear comments, next slide, please, Jess, where we say we did not enter HR, to be able to understand what our matrix is. The next slide, please, Jess. Or even to be able to discuss numbers. So really what we need to understand is that as an HR community, we need to be capable and well-resourced to be able to address these core issues. Next slide, please, Jess. So, and a lot of the times when I have discussions with my colleagues, as well as practitioners within South Africa, and we talk about numbers, and especially where, in some of the previous environments where I used to come from, which is financial services, which is very driven in terms of data from actuaries, as well as accountants. You need to be able to understand that without the numbers or without understanding the real reason why we give numbers, we as HR are not going to be able to add value to the business. And with us saying that we cannot provide the necessary data, we cannot provide the necessary analytics, we are really saying that HR cannot provide business solutions or cannot make a positive or a negative impact, to the bottom line of the business. So next time we really start talking about the numbers and we start sharing or putting out data, we need to be able to ask ourselves, is this data going to add value to the business? Is this data going to make a negative or a positive impact to the bottom line? The next slide, please, Jess. And we talk about now what is big data and what it isn't. And traditionally, when we talk about one of the interesting researchers that I came across from Patel, we talk about, you know, big data in the real world where we come from, which is now 2020 and going forward. And we talk about the traditional paradigm where really we were talking about synchronization of data, where we had limited data sets and we were really focused on driving surveys and empirical inducative data. Whereas now we're focusing on more broader spectrums where we are not really data centric, but we are more information driven. And we're also looking at unlimited paradigms where can we possibly get as much data as possible. And a big thing that we're really focusing on now as we move forward as an HR community is to move away from the selection bias in terms of surveys, but to be more diverse and inclusive in how we ask questions and how we distribute those surveys across the business. The next slide, please, Jess. And therefore, then you ask your question, why should then HR invest in metrics? So benefits, as I spoke to, are endless. And really, the ultimate thing is to remember that data-driven decision-making allows the business to be able to either support the recommendations that you're putting forward, or to be against the proposal that you're putting forward. And what we often say is that when we talk about Hawthorne's methodology and phenomenons, it's really how to impact a business that can lead to temporary increases and to be able to see results that are driven within the business as a whole. The next slide, please, Jess. So how do we ensure that when we talk about big data and when we talk about data analytics for HR, how do we deliver that within the HR community, but also to make sure that the business understands what we're talking about? So I say that, and our organization says that we need to be able to make our big data small, simple, manageable, as well as actionable. Don't come with data that really the business isn't going to do anything about it. So I say try and don't attempt to track all HR benchmarks, but measure what is important for your business. So for example, within our oil field services, a big key driver to how we make profits and how we deliver to our clients would be turnaround times in which we can get staff on site, and turnaround times how we can get staff on site. So that becomes a key matrix for our OFS business as a whole. And we talk about also, identifying what it is that the data that you want to collect. And that specifically relates to the goal in terms of data collation. And we all have different types of HR systems, whether it be SAP, whether it be many of these other HR systems that exist, but which means we have endless access to data, but we need to be able to understand what is the data that we are going to extract, for example, within OFS business, to be able to quantify to the client as well as to the business how quickly we got people on oil rig and how quickly we got them off. What is the data that I'm going to look for in SAP? Is it going to be hiring data? Is it going to be number of hours that it took for them to travel to the actual oil rig? Is it going to be the impact in terms of the cost and expenses that are associated with them going to the oil rig? So all of that data and that goal and understanding that data becomes critical for us defining that matrix for that specific business. And also, I think often we overlook the who is going to be responsible for the data and who's going to interpret it best within the HR team. So as an HR practitioner, I say the minimum that we should all be able to understand is to be able to work spreadsheets and be able to interpret data. But there are people that will be able to interpret it. And such as the new role that's coming into play now, which is have a data analyst within the team to be able to constantly review the data, etc. And I, as CMO, come in to provide the narrative in terms of what that data means for my specific business and how it will impact the business overall. And I think it also becomes important for any business to understand what is happening without then, in the rest of the world or in the rest of the region, because understanding what your counterparts or your competitors are doing gives you that competitive advantage to be able to understand where are your talents going, to which organization, how quickly are they staying, or how long are they staying at your competitors to come back into your organization. So all of that benchmarks become critical for us to understand within the HR community. Next slide, please, Jess. And I'm not going to spend too much time, but really, I think we all can accept that, it's become a norm now that data analytics with various softwares that's available to give us that information. Next slide, please, Jess. So now, when we come to the decision of defining now what do the HR matrix become for us to be able to analyze that data, the first thing that I normally say is that we need to be able to quantify the cost and the impact to our business as well as the organization. And we give practical examples of what is, for example, cost to hire, and what is the time to hire, and so on and so forth. So when we define a HR matrix, it's always going to have to be quantifiable and to be able to have a specific outcome or a business solution at the end of the day. Next slide, please, Jess. And more organizations are now reporting on a larger number of matrix more consistently than most organizations. So when we go back to my previous slide and we talk about what are the matrices that you as an organization need to find, I think those will differ based on your business need. So for example, time to hire might be important in my business where it's not that important in our business, but what we look for is, for example, tenure within our business, or for example, cost to hire in our business. So it's really going to be delivered by business, and it needs to speak to the value within the business and the value within that specific evolution in terms of your matrix. And here we speak about what is, for example, the maturity levels of your specific organizations, and what are the maturity levels of your HR function within the organization as a whole. The next slide, please, Jess. So I always say that don't approach or don't do a matrix or only do a matrix if, for example, you have the adequate information. The matrix is going to give the ability to other managers or to the HR function to make better decisions. And it is also going to give us the ability and the capability to make different decisions. So it is critical that we understand that HR matrix, and when we talk about the numbers, etc., that we do understand that there needs to be a derived value from that specific matrix that you've defined, and that it will obviously impact on both the bottom line as well as the top line of the business. Next slide, please, Jess. And here we talk about the different types of common HR matrices that are there, and I'm not going to spend too much time, but I do want to really sort of kind of emphasize that the two discerning themes that are coming out more and more is where we look at data mining. And data mining is both internal as well as external. So you find that a lot of organizations are subscribing, to external data mining houses or data mining warehouses so that it can influence internal decisions. And I think I alluded to that earlier. And within our COVID times and our changing business times, we're looking at obviously the workforce modeling becoming a core and critical function in how we define our organizations going forward. Next slide, please, Jess. And really, I think as an HR function, we then have to come up with a balanced scorecard approach to looking at how all of this data and what we're going to do in terms of our data analytics. So one of the core key things is we need to be able to align our data analytics to business functions. The second one is that we need to also ensure that it measures the effectiveness of the various departments or even the entire company. And it also considers all perspectives of all stakeholders. So whether you're reporting to a line manager, whether you're reporting to a head of department, a CEO, or even to the board, we need to be able to come to that level where we understand to what level of information are we required to share at that specific stakeholder. For some stakeholders, finance might be a critical and core value for that specific data report. It might be customers or internal business processes. So understanding and developing a balanced scorecard approach to your stakeholders becomes critical when you define your HR data analytics. Next slide, please, Jess. And I always say that there are key three must-haves. It must be accessible, it must be auditable, and it must be actionable. And a lot of the times, for examples, you will find that we as an HR community kind of fall short on the audit trail. So I think that a lot of the HR matrices now allow us that opportunity to be accountable for the decisions that we've made through our HR processes. Next slide, please, Jess. So here we go into the 5 tips, and I'm going to try and go as quickly as possible. The first slide, please, Jess. So here we say know and show why your HR matrix happens. So don't come to your business with an HR matrix to fill up your monthly HR or quarterly report, etc. Report on issues that are critical to the business and will impact on the business. Next slide, please, Jess. Most important thing that I found, especially within the oil and gas and energy field, very important to keep it simple. They're not interested in hearing all the other nice to haves and fancy stuff, etc. So it becomes important when you understand your stakeholder that you keep it as understandable and as consumable as possible to your specific stakeholder. Sophisticated calculations are not going to assist them. Sophisticated dashboards and reports are not going to add value to the broader conversation around how do we impact our organization and what are our people contributing to the organization as the whole. Next slide, please, Jess. And keep your managers in mind. Whenever I report, I sometimes find that whether it is a board report or a CEO report, I always have to confirm that with the specific manager or department head and so on and so forth, because there might be nuances or changes that might have taken place between my reporting on that specific matrix, or there might be a specific reason that I might not understand that the analytics is bringing forth to me. So it's important to keep your managers in mind as well as to keep them informed. Next slide, please. And I think what we need to understand is we need to also understand that HR reports are sometimes overwhelming for our organization. But we don't also need to shy away that the bigger information, or the more information that is relevant to our business, the better decisions we can support our businesses to make. So ask yourself, what are those business matrices that the business might need? So sometimes a line manager might ask you for 2 HR matrices, but because you understand the operations that are taking place within that specific business, you are able to add maybe 2 or 3 extra matrices that might influence that manager's decision-making or that function's specific profitability. Next slide, please, Jess. And so therefore I say, sometimes it's easier to break those matrices down by, bringing it down to tangible targets, to tangible objectives that we can easily kind of say in a Gantt chart or in a graphical presentation point of view, to say, manager X, these are your people. This is what you expect of your people. This is what you're supposed to be measured. These are the targets, and these are the initiatives that we're running. And we're therefore going to have these specific matrices and measures that will be able to tell us, are your people doing what they're supposed to do, or are they not? Next slide, please, Jess. And some of the tools that are important to kind of understand when putting these matrices in place. We talk about surveys, we talk about comparisons. Mentoring relationships is quite a big thing within our organization. And that's specifically because we want to assess the involvement of the people leader in how our people perform as well. And we also talk about business matrices that are also kind of critical in terms of how we interpret our data overall. Next slide, please, Jess. And more importantly, I think what we don't do often than not is to promote the work that we do as HR, or to promote the results or that we've done for the business. So very critical in terms of once we've done our matrices and we've reported and we've impacted on business and we've defined or we've assessed that ROI, to promote and to communicate it across our stakeholders as well as the business overall. Next slide, please, Jess. And I'm not going to go too deep into the 3 basic HR matrices, but I think one of the fundamental HR matrices, staff absenteeism, monthly turnover rate, recruitment source yield, one of the 3 most basic, I think, matrices that one can define for the organization. Next slide, please, Jess. And also important to understand is that we will obviously have the detractors that exist within the organization, and knowing that that as HR professionals, numbers are not our strongest point. So I'm always open to learning from my mistakes, and I've come to learn that bigger is not always better, and always being aligned to the business strategy. I won't report on things that the business does not necessarily, or it was a theme 3 years ago, now you're reporting it 3 years later. It's important to understand, where the business is going. So for example, now we're changing our energy mix and our energy requirements to driving hydrogen and to impacting, the net zero carbon emissions. So what is going to be critical for my business at this stage is for them to understand, do we have the skills in place to be able to change our current operating environment to that is driven, from a hydrogen perspective? And if not, where are those people coming from and how are we going to develop them? How long it's going to take? Because we've made that obviously commitment to say by 2050, we should have a net zero carbon emission operation across Baker Hughes. So that becomes very critical and vital within the organization. Next slide. Oh yeah, the last one is that also not every HR function needs to have an HR matrix. So that also becomes critical for any organization to have. And I spoke, I think, about the maturity matrix as well. So I think we can skip this slide, but I think it's also becoming more vitally important that as you share these reports and as you share these data analytics and information with your business, you need to understand where your organization is at and what is their specific need at that point in time. Next slide, please, Jess. And I think data analytics gives us an opportunity to actually, introspect and to have an honest conversation with as stakeholders as a whole. So data analytics within the HR fraternity, I cannot, re-emphasize it more, that honest and real data analytics becomes even more critical to the decisions in how we shape, sustainable businesses going forward. The next slide, please, Jess. I think that's the last slide. Oh yes, one of the other things that I also recommend is that we as an HR community start looking at official standards for our reports. So I kind of use it as my bragging right when I speak to my leaders to say, I've assessed the organization from this standard and this is the approach and these are the tools that I've used. I think that will be my last slide. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry you can't hear them clapping. So let me do the clapping here. You can hear the participant clapping. Thank you for this. Like we said earlier, there'll be questions. We'll be picking up questions during the Q&A. During the Q&A, we're picking up questions. So for the participants on this call, you can drop your questions at the chat box. We have our team who will pick those